Let's welcome Randy Coryell, who does the soundtrack for The Voice of Boise documentary that's going to be coming out. And Seth Randal, who is the filmmaker. Seth, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, no problem. The film is not quite finished, right?
It's not. It's a documentary, and it's called The Fall of 55, and we are just wrapping it up. Where we did interviews over the period of 5 years, and wrote a script. Randy wrote the score, and we're in the editing process and just putting on the polish.
And submitting it to film festivals with the cycle,
Excellent. Now, for people who don't know about the Voice of Boise, can you briefly recount the story?
Sure. It is a scandal that happened in Boise in 1955, hence the name The Fall of 55. Mm-hmm. And it was a homosexual scandal where 16 men were prosecuted, and reportedly over 1,400 people were questioned. It started as an investigation of men allegedly having sex with teenage boys. But by the time the scandal wrapped up, some of the so-called victims were 20 or 21 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's unique about it too? These 16 men were prominent men here in the city of Boise.
Some of them were. Some of them were. One man was the vice president of the Idaho First National Bank, and if you've lived in Idaho as long as I have or as Randy has, and you know that Idaho First was pretty prominent.
It was the bank.
It was the bank.
And this man was a vice president.
Yeah,
and he went to prison for it.
And this Halloween is the 50th anniversary.
Boy, that's hard to believe.
Interesting.
The Voice of Boise, is that still in print? I mean, the book?
Well, they put a new version in print. I think it was 2001. They put a new paperback version. The author, John Gerasi, wrote a new foreword to the book. Yeah. And so did a university professor. But our research was completely independent of the Boys of Boise book. It's not based on the Boys of Boise book. It's completely new material. We went through the prison records, through the jail records, the court records, anything we could get our hands on. Did research in several other states to try to get a picture of what really happened, including looking at all the statesmen for over a year, looking at other media. This was in Time Magazine. It was in the Denver Post. It was in newspapers throughout the country. It was a very big deal when this happened because there were allegations of a sex ring happening in Boise with allegedly 100 boys being involved.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Well, now, how did you two come together as far as getting the soundtrack in the movie?
Well, he came to me 5 years ago over lunch and said, "Would you like to do a film score?" And me, well, I've never done a film score before, and I said, "Oh, sure, this isn't never going to happen anyway."
Right.
So I think I'll just sit down and just write some music when he says. So he did, and even though I've done over 5,000 concerts in my life, I've never done a film score. It took me 2.5 months to write, finished it, and the music is now put to the score to the film, and it's a great marriage, and I'm just excited about that. I actually had the opportunity. It was a great learning experience.
Yeah. I bet it was. And then now, are you playing the soundtrack as well, or is it a small?
Yes. Well, I fully orchestrated it and played it myself, yes.
Wow.
It was a big job.
Oh, I bet it was. What are the companies involved besides the bank?
Well,
I know Boise Fruit and Produce was
well. There were a number of companies where people worked. None of them were actually directly connected to the cases. They may have had somebody who worked for them, but there were no companies that were directly involved. In the very beginning of the investigation, there was an organization called the Idaho Allied Civic Forces, which was essentially sort of a political lobbying group that was involved in helping get these cases started. They weren't started by the police department. They were started by a probation officer. The police department wouldn't prosecute, so the probation officer actually went out and solicited donations to pay for a private investigator to get it.
Seth's got to leave it there. When's it going to be released?
We aren't sure. We're trying to get it into film festivals.
Seth, thanks for stopping by. Randy, thank you.